Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is Monday, and that means, pardon me, it is cartoon time. And today is our sixth episode of Captain America from 1966, Zemo and the Masters of Evil. Before we get too much further into it, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button so you always know when we upload our new content. We really appreciate it. Also, if you can, listen for a couple minutes longer or watch for a couple minutes longer. It really helps the algorithm. So today, as I said, this is actually from an Avengers story, Volume 1, Issue 6, which was published in 1964, in release date in May of 1964 with, let's just look at the cover. July cover date. So it was drawn by Jack Kirby and inked by Chick Stone. And you can tell it's a Kirby story all through and through. I mean, Stan and Jack, but it's Kirby art all the way through. Colored by Stan Goldberg, lettered by Sam Rosen, and of course edited as well by Stan Lee. So all of the Masters of Evil there, the Melter, what a name. The Black Knight, the original, the first Black Knight, the first one of modern continuity, and the Radioactive Man have all appeared before, as has Baron Zemo. We've already seen him because they do stories out of order here, and neither the Wasp nor Rick Jones nor Giant Man or Ant-Man appear in this and we're back. Nobody will notice that slight interruption, but my sainted mother had a visitor show up right as we started here. So without further ado, let's crack open that theme song. At some point. Captain America throws his mighty shield. So, speaking of this episode of Captain America, your humble agent had this very 8mm movie right here, 200 feet, when he got his Super 8 / regular 8 projector finally, so he could buy Super 8mm movies. Now, I was so excited to see this because I thought it's a cartoon. It's going to look like Hanna-Barbera animation, not knowing Gantry Lawrence was more suspended animation, motion comics. So I watched this whole thing the first time and was like, what is wrong with this? Not real. And it was in black and white. I think if I'd have seen it in color, it might have impressed me a little more, but it took me a long time to realize that it was what it was. So it's a great cover there. I love it. If you look up Zenorama 25, I believe, you can find a picture of it in there. Available on Amazon, of course. We really should talk about that at some point. And I kept it for a long time. I don't remember if it had sound or not, but these came out, they were released again in the 70s. I want to say mid-70s, right before the videotapes started coming out, maybe even the late 70s. But it was, it cost me like $9 to get it from Kmart. And alas. But I would appreciate it a lot more now, though. I didn't understand the story because I hadn't read it. Like I said, it was had I read this back then, but, I couldn't afford to buy a back issue of Avengers number 6. That was 12 years old by then. And I think they were in Marvel Triple Action. They didn't repeat them. They started repeating them later, I think. I don't remember off the top of my head. So I had seen this before, but it was only ran 10 minutes. So it was almost the entire episode because it only runs 17 if you take out all the intermediary stuff. Maybe 9 minutes. It runs 17 minutes start to finish. But now I'd appreciate it a lot more. All right, so let's get into this. Here's more of the... All those who chose to oppose his shield must yield. If he's led to a fight and a duel is due. So, we start out in South America, in an unnamed country in South America, with, I guess that's a sloth of some kind. Baron Zemo's henchman is Franz Gruber. Franz, but he didn't have his brother Hans, so they were not there to pump you up. But he's the pilot. He's bringing in supplies and stuff for Zemo. There he is. Zemo still, as we saw in an earlier episode, he's still ruling over the natives with an iron fist. But he suddenly sees this Captain America back in action. And then we get a flashback here for Zemo, right? And then he tells Franz that how he got the hood stuck to his face. There's adhesive X. He calls it substance X or chemical X or something. I've always known it as adhesive X just because I've known this story for decades, literal decades. But Cap throws it in, it crashes on him, and then he finds out Cap's alive and throws a hissy fit. That's a serious Nazi, isn't it? But so we're back. So we have a little flashback where we see Cap drench his face. Fortunately, he didn't, stick his shirt to him, or he'd be wearing the same shirt. It's kind of gross when you think about it. You feel sorry for him, but nowadays, his son was in. I think his son. I don't know if he's Helmut von Zemo or Baron von. I don't know. Was in Civil War, or the Winter Soldier. Pardon me, both. I don't remember. So he has he summons the Masters of Evil, which is the Black Knight, who is the original Black Knight, Professor Garrett, and he's he's got the winged horse Aragorn because Roy. I don't know if he was named in this one, but he later became Aragorn with those white wings. But his son, of course, Dane Garrett, took over, and I think Valkyrie. One of the Valkyries now has the winged horse. I don't know. We get the malevolent melter, Bruno Horgan. I just like these sound effects. I don't know why they had to animate the sound effects. They could have used that time to animate anything else. I think his costume is pretty cool. They're all squirting adhesive X everywhere in New York, and the narration says the entire population of the city of New York, probably some 3 or 4 million people in 1965, are stuck to the cement, like all of them, everywhere. See, stuck. That looks really, really painful. I mean, these guys had to go to the back, and their clothes would be stuck to them as well. And finally, we get the first melting man, Chen Lu, who is never his accent. He doesn't have an accent. He's not said to be Chinese, but we all know he's Chinese, and all of them appeared in other stories originally. The Melter in on Iron Man. I don't know when the Black Knight first appeared. Let's clicky here, but Radioactive Man fought Thor. He was a Giant Man foe, which kind of is funny since neither Giant Man or the Wasp are in this episode, as I mentioned in this cartoon. But it's all Kirby there. I was hoping that they'd have the sound effects going, but they didn't. They're high heels. I mean, it's just, it's funny. So I highly recommend, I read the story out of the Avengers Epic Collection #1 called Earth's Mightiest Heroes. So you can get the whole story there. The Teen Brigade is in it. Rick Jones is in it, wanting to be his partner, and Cap's moping about Bucky. Stan really went into the whole, everyone's got to have some kind of human problem. Sometimes he did a little too much. Sometimes he didn't. It's all right. I mean, but he, can tell he wrote soaps and romance stories first, aside from monsters. Cap runs to the fray, not without Gru at this point in time, and not Gru of Despicable Me, Gru the Wanderer. I did not err in that. So, but you can see the animation here where his legs are moving, but the rest of him is not. And he brings with him Thor and Iron Man. So those are the big three of Marvel. I mean, you don't have a female big three of Marvel, or a trinity like Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. These were their big three at the time. Well, Spider-Man probably should have been in there. And the Fantastic Four would be separate because there's 4 of them. Be that as it may, they've left out the Giant Man and the Wasp, who we've already seen in because they found him. I don't know. I guess they had to simplify the story somewhat. They left out a bunch of other stuff, which I can understand leaving out Rick Jones and the Teen Brigade because there's somebody they did not leave out, although they don't show him, but they mention him, and that's hilarious. That is a nice shot of Iron Man in action. Thor throws his mighty Uru hammer Mjolnir at the radioactive man and it bounces off of him, which makes Chen Lu laugh. Ha ha ha. Shoots at him, but he misses, but he gets Cap. Oh no. And it goes right through the fiber, so his skin's stuck onto it. Oh no. And probably everything else. He stays in that position for quite a while, as you might imagine. Here is the first chapter break when they go into the second one. These were called Zemo and the Masters of Evil, Zemo Strikes, and the Fury of Zemo. Oh, I can't wait for the next one, too, because that looks cool. This was first broadcast October 10th, 1966. So there were 3 parts. Yeah, I guess they just do all 3 at once because it was 5 shows once a week, right? Half an hour. Plenty of time for commercials and adverts for the Merry Marvel Marching Society. And this right out of the book, but Iron Man takes out a huge chunk of the city street. I suppose Tony Stark reimbursed New York for it. And then they skate now. I believe Giant Man was with him. Cap had a partner that they were both together in the comic book. And they just steal a truck. No problem with that. Just take a truck because who's going to stop them? Yeah, it's Giant Man and Cap, and they're kind of water skiing across, tearing up all of the city streets. Then Zemo lands with his minions, or his minions are awaiting him. There's a nice shot of that. Oh, it's Pachycephalosaurus. There's Higgintube making his obligatory cameo because he rocks. And Iron Man, they've tried everything to get Cap loose, so Iron Man suddenly remembers Paste Pot Pete, the trapster, who has a universal solvent. Now, how come they didn't offer this to Zemo? That would have just stopped him in his tracks. He'd have been like, I'm happy again, right? Right? Never did. Not now, not when his son, after Zemo gets killed, not when his son goes mental and becomes the first Phoenix of Marvel Comics and tries to drown Cap in a vat of adhesive X. You'd think Cap would remember, we just have a universal solvent, do whatever you want to. I'll just bathe in it and it'll come right off. And it works. And this is all it is. He mentions Paste Pot Pete like he's a friend. He doesn't say he's a villain. And he says if this works, he's going to leave something to Paste Pot Pete in his will. Now, did Tony do that? We will never know. So there he's using, and this is, again, right out of the comic book, except no background. I think it's simple backgrounds. But there it's melting, and everyone's happy. Now they've got to figure out what to do. They're going to do the old switcheroo on the villains. Except that, since the Black Knight is a Giant Man villain, Cap's going to take him on, and there they go. They also, now the Teen Brigade does this in the comic book. Rick and his pals substitute the universal solvent for Zemo's adhesive X. Once again, right there, Cap could have squirted him in the face. His mask would have fallen off, and he probably would have cried and said, I forgive you for it originally since you fixed me. But nope, doesn't even think about it. All he does is he's mad because he killed Bucky, even though Bucky jumped on there by himself, unbidden by anybody. So there you go. Off they go with the fake solvent, or the unsolvent. Dissolvent? I don't know. Call it whatever you want. Another reused panel. It's the exact same from original, but everyone's getting free. Then the Black Knight fights Thor. You got another zit and a twang and a zunk, a bling, pwee-cow. These are not in the comic book that much. And a fizzit. That's in there. This right out there, that's a blaster ray that stuns Thor momentarily. He was not nearly as superhuman and godlike in his first couple of years as he became. I much prefer a more human Superman, but that's me. But then he recovers quickly, and guess what happens? And I guess Thor would be able to ride flying animals. His goats took him across the universe. Chen Lu is zapping people and wondering why they're falling off the buildings, which might be unfortunate for these guys because no one's there to catch them. That was just a nice shot, although I believe the shield has been added over him, ruining that, but it's okay. And Cap's about to fight the radioactive man, who's way more powerful. And then we go to episode 3. But they've got a plan. Iron Man's behind him, and somehow he zaps this thing, which I guess powers the coils. Hawkeye would later use these coils against Captain Atom in the wonderful Justice League Avengers crossover series, because they worked on the same principle. They're lead lined and can stop his powers. So that's a nice little. That's something that they used. Kurt and George, my favorite series. Once it gets lighter again in the afternoons, because it's dark here in Fossil Bed now at the time of this recording, I'll do a couple. We'll start doing book reviews again. I just don't have enough light to properly do it. My little ring light here is good, but it's a little ring light. I need a bigger one. And right out of the comic book, he's just floating there waiting for the authorities to pick him up. Then the melter zaps him. Now the melter originally could only dissolve iron, but thanks to Zemo, he could dissolve all metals now. So he improved him. But he's Iron Man is not fully iron. This is some kind of alloy that's more than iron, I would think. But once again, this right out of the comic book. And this is how he gets defeated, because the melter's an idiot. Shoots the hydrant. Pressure just knocks him out, and he can't work his melter again. And it's on his chest, of all things. I mean, he probably should have it coming out of his gloves or his melting beams. But perhaps the Shocker made it work in Spider-Man to have his beams come out of there instead of out of the chest. And I like this shot too, just zooming him off to jail. They just took him to jail. I mean, just a regular jail, which is where they all were. Paste Pot Pete actually helps Iron Man because he wants to get out of jail faster, even though he's been defeated by the Fantastic Four, and I think even the Human Torch defeated him by himself. Paste Pot Pete. I know that Stanley loves his alliteration, but the Trapster, not a greater name, not a great name to begin with, but better than Paste Pot Pete. Then Zemo shows heretofore unknown hand-to-hand combat as a karate master. But he has no unagi, as we found out, because he killed himself, as we've seen already in a previous episode. And just Kirby's just at the, it's too bad these were not just a little more animated, because where else would you don't get to see another Kirby cartoon really until Thundar, the Barbarian, in 81. Crunch. And that's the crunch of him not hitting Cap, but Cap crunching his wrist. And he's telling him, "Look into my eyes. These are the eyes of a patriot, a free man who will never bow down to tyranny." Yeah, Stan's purple prose there. And whoom, plop. But Hans Gruber shoots at Cap, just winging him. Cap gets winged a lot, which is a good thing he's got armor on and a full head helmet. There he is. They think they get away, and whatever you call that thing, I don't even know what kind of helicopter that it could possibly be, but Thor, in his infinite wisdom, creates a space vortex and sends him away. And Cap's like, "Where'd he go?" Well, we don't know. He could go to another country, he could go to another time, he could go to another universe. We'll find out. And they do later on. Well, we've already found out what happens to him, because Zemo buries himself. All right, so there is our final, or that's the last panel here. And I do have another. Yeah, there's a nicer one. This is the color one. But they give away everything. Send Zemo into outer space. I didn't know it was not I didn't know it was an Avengers story. So And the red and the white and the blue come through when Captain America throws his mighty. All right. So that's our episode for today. Or it's number, what did we say? Number 6, number 7? I don't even remember. But we're about halfway through, and I'm enjoying this quite a bit. Just looking at the artwork that's slightly animated. Cap's actor is good. Tony's got a good voice actor. Thor is a little, and they had a small voice cast, so they try to make the villains sound unique and give them these, gotta do this, and then um, Baron Zemo has a pseudo German accent. He would have fit right in on Hogan's Heroes. I know nothing, Schultz. That is not so funny. But until our next assignment, which is tomorrow, and I have no idea what that'll be. Maybe we'll do a horror movie. How about that? Let's plan on that. This is X7 signing off.